Welcome back to an episode of Clutch Gene Sports. I'm your host, Marco. A lot to talk about, a lot to break down in a way. Now, not necessarily a lot of things that were happening at training camp, but holy shit, Trent Williams. And I tweeted about it right before practice started when everyone realized that Trent Williams wasn't there at practice, that I truly believed it was a contract issue because there's no guaranteed money, no inside scoop there or anything. It just, for me, players who don't have guaranteed money, it makes sense when they want new contracts. To me, that's kind of how I took it, that he wanted a new contract. Very crazy because he's your best offensive lineman, and not having Trent changes the trajectory of how the 49ers operate. Now, Trent is extremely valuable to the 49ers, so I don't think it'll be an issue for him to get extended. It makes a lot of sense for the 49ers to extend him. And when you take a look at why they should extend him, there's a lot of dollar signs on why they should extend Trent Williams. Taking a look at Trent Williams, if the 49ers were to restructure or extend his contract through 2028, they could reset the market at left tackle. He's still one of the best left tackles in the NFL, but they save a shit ton of money in 2024, 25, and 26. With all of those caps dropping, giving the 49ers more money to extend Brandon Aiyuk, Brock Purdy. Obviously, no left tackle, no Trent Williams is going to affect your quarterback, especially when everyone else, if no Trent Williams means below average offensive line. You could argue that the line might be average without Trent. I don't see it being above average or average. I see a below average offensive line without Trent Williams. I think he will get extended, even though he's not there due to the contract. I think he'll get extended. I think that'll get fixed. You'll see that being resolved right away. The numbers that you save on Trent Williams' contract, let me go ahead and pull those up, because you do save a handful of money. So by extending Trent Williams, this is according to Over the Cap, the 49ers would save, again, a shit ton of money in 2024, 15.5 or 15.15, sorry. 2025, 17, 26, 24, and 2027, they save around $42 million against the cap. Now, what does that mean for the 49ers? That means Brock Purdy extension following this season, so next year. You could extend Brandon Aiyuk and still roll over a lot of cap money. So looking at the 49ers, they're definitely going to extend Trent Williams or restructure his contract. I think he gets a deal before Brandon Aiyuk. And if you're Brandon Aiyuk, does this cause more of a personal attack? Does he feel disrespected even more? Probably. Now, how would you feel if you're on your final year of a contract? You have a teammate who probably is more important than you. Let's be straight up. He's more important than you. But he has a few years on his contract, just no guaranteed money. So he's in the same situation as you, no guaranteed money past this year. And he gets extended first. That may cause Brandon Aiyuk to be a little bit upset if Trent gets extended first. But I understand why the 49ers would extend Trent Williams or restructure him first. He is more valuable to the 49ers getting back to the Super Bowl than Brandon Aiyuk. Without him, your O-line is garbage. With him, it might be average to above average. So big news there. Trent Williams is not there. Brandon Aiyuk is at training camp. So if you're 49ers and you're tuning in, he is at training camp. Now, he is not practicing. He is holding in. And according to Kyle Shanahan, Brandon Aiyuk says he has neck and back pain. Of course, Brandon Aiyuk probably doesn't have any pain, but he's holding in because he does not want to participate without a contract. Smart move. Looking at the 49ers, contract issues just seem like an issue. And I had mentioned it right after the Super Bowl that you may have players after losing a Super Bowl want to get as much money as they possibly can. Whether that's because no guaranteed money, whether that's they realize we might not be able to win a Super Bowl with this roster. Let me at least cash out. I mean, shit. Nick Bosa said yesterday that he had self-doubt, or he had doubt after the Super Bowl that he would ever win a Super Bowl with the 49ers ever. So these players who are asking for contracts, it makes a lot of sense that they're looking at the situation and they want to capitalize on how much money they can get now. Brandon Aiyuk not being there is a good sign. May be able to get worked out by the end of the week. That's my prediction. Him and Trent are worked out by the end of the week. You don't want to have those guys out for more than 2 weeks. Get them done so they could get prepared for the season. You got big goals of a Super Bowl. Now, pretty big scare. Right away, I get a text message real early into training camp that Leonard Floyd was grabbing at his calf after the first or second team play of the first or second team drills. Right away, my first reaction is, fuck. Holy shit. I think Achilles, right? Like, that's the first reaction is Achilles. Now, it wasn't Achilles. It was just cramping. He was probably dehydrated coming into day one of camp, not prepared. Bills Mafia is let me go with this, Kenny. Bills Mafia, they said Floyd is done in terms of they said his sacks were against the worst teams in garbage time and in the first half of last season only. Do you know anything? So they did, some of those sacks did come in garbage time. Some of them came, but he still had the pass rushing repertoire. He still had the ability to bend, the ability to get after the quarterback. I wouldn't take that into consideration. You also got to play a little thing into our head, right, Kenny? A lot of times what happens when a player leaves an organization, they want to go on a smear campaign, right? For example, the Niners lost to Aiyuk Armstead, and right away you had fans saying, we don't need him. He's always injured, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know what I mean? So we had fans doing it to Aiyuk Armstead. When you turn on the tape, when Armstead's healthy, he's a hell of a player. His injuries were just affecting him. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. I think Bills may be a little bit bitter that he left. They may be bitter that they have Von Miller, who's on an extreme big contract. So that was a scare to start camp. Now, what was real and more than a scare is Guerendo went down, pulled his hamstring. Kyle Shanahan right away. I tweeted out when it happened. Kyle Shanahan confirmed that it was a tweaked hamstring, that he pulled up on it and tweaked his hamstring. That's not good because he's had a hamstrings injury dating back to Wisconsin. So that's not a good sign for the rookie. And it kind of brings me to the attention of Christian Watson with the Green Bay Packers. Often had hamstring injuries in college, started having hamstring injuries in the pros, training camp, his first year, his first regular season year, even his second year. And he went to a staff. I don't know what college it was or where it was, but it was a staff that takes a graph. It's kind of like a 3D graph of your hamstrings or your muscle. And essentially it told him that one muscle was double the size of the other. And he was able to actually work that out. So he says he feels a lot better. Maybe that's what Isaac Guerendo needs to do. Maybe he has one of his hamstrings isn't as strong. So that was a big no-no, like a big red flag. Oh, shit. He's down. From people that I spoke to that were there, the running game looked really well. Now they're not in pads. They're not able to tackle. They're not able to thump. Defensive line isn't able to do what they normally would against the run. There's no pads and everything like that. So that is something I'm going to take into consideration. But the run defense did not look well. The running backs were all getting big chunk plays. That's not good. So that's just, I'm going to tie that into the Isaac Guerendo piece because he's part of the running back room and the running backs looked well. I was told the running back room didn't look, the receivers room didn't look great. I was told Deebo struggled to create separation down the field against Isaac Yiadom. Isaac Yiadom shut him down on multiple occasions, from what I was told. I was also told Jennings looked the part, strong hands, looked good. But I was actually something that really surprised me, and I don't know how to take what I was told. Now, everything I take it with a grain of salt, because it is someone who's there, um, who works for the 49ers. So a lot of times they'll give different opinions regarding the 49ers, whether it's a player that he likes or doesn't want to be on the team, or every player, every guy has a certain relationship and stuff like that. So I don't know how he interacts with these guys on a regular basis, but he said Danny Gray was the best receiver of day one. He said Danny Gray's speed, his route running, his hands, they all showed up today. I don't know how to take that. I don't know if that's a great sign that maybe Danny Gray finally is taking that next step in year 3 of his NFL tenure, or if it's a concern because you don't have Ricky Pearsall, you don't have Brandon Aiyuk, so you don't have any true route runners on in that receivers room. So that's a concern, right? Or it's a, you know what? Holy crap! The Niners finally got their receiver in Danny Gray. That's something. However, thanks for Kenny for bringing it up. I'm not sure if the 49ers have posted it yet. But as Josh Dobbs was targeting Danny Gray, and Kyle Shanahan broke it down a little bit in the press conference. He explained how he felt Danny Gray had beat the corner. He's like, and he doesn't know if it's Joshua Dobbs not holding the safety, or if the safety still got over there after he was held by the quarterback. So it was Malik Mustapha. He broke from the center field to the sideline, cut off the route, got an interception. Likely sounds like it's Josh Dobbs. If your receiver is open and you're not holding the safety, you're going to be throwing interceptions, because the 49ers defensive backs are very reactive, very instinctual. So that sounds like it was Joshua Dobbs. But a good sign is Danny Gray was open on that route. So maybe if it's with Brock Purdy, maybe if it's a different quarterback, maybe Danny Gray gets that reception. So that was good to hear about Danny Gray. Christian McCaffrey did not participate in today's practice, and Kyle went on and said they have a timeline for every player that's going to be practicing. And with every player practicing, one day they will practice, one day they won't. I think that's very smart for the 49ers organization. Try to keep your guys healthy throughout training camp and allow you to see who's in that second range, or who's the second best player at that group, whether it's for stuff like that. Hey, man, doing the same thing, man. Live at my lunch, right? I'm on my lunch doing the same thing, try to give a little recap as fast as I can. So for me, looking at everyone's, appreciate you for tuning in, Roger. So it looked like the 49ers receiver room did struggle. Not worried about that. Secondary, from what I was told, looked good. Isaac Yiadom looked good. The secondary safeties looked good. Kyle Shanahan even talked about how Jair Brown has looked the part, and he looks like a guy who should be starting day one for the rest of training camp. Really excited for the 49ers about where they're going with their secondary. According to everyone that was there, practice was just practice. It's a day one of practice. Now, one thing I did take from Brock Purdy, and I was pretty apparent when I spoke interceptions last season or last training camp, because I don't want a quarterback throwing interceptions or doing certain things in training camp that they can't do in regular season, because now it kind of throws your rhythm off. And I like what Brock Purdy said today. During his press conference, he said he wants to be as efficient as he possibly can during training camp, because he wants it to be a smooth transition from training camp to the regular season. Now, no interceptions will ever matter during training camp, and I said this last year as well, even though I mentioned every interception that was thrown during camp, because I don't want to see quarterbacks throwing those mistakes or making those mistakes, whether it's the wrong read or whether it was he was trying to throw into a tight window. Because once you get into the game and you're practicing how you play, I'm a firm believer you practice how you play, and so is Brock Purdy accordingly. He goes on and says, like, hey, you know what? I want to be as efficient as possible, because I want it to be an easy transition for the offense when it comes to training camp to the regular season or training camp to preseason games and actually having to play games. I thought that was pretty big to hear from Brock Purdy. Isaac Yiadom being a player that stepped up was pretty cool. We are getting some film from the 49ers. So you guys thought I was messing around regarding, I know I had someone thought I was joking about Danny Gray looking the best in camp. Well, I'm going to go and show you guys real quick what the 49ers posted. Now, you don't got to take it into consideration. Now, it is just one clip. But that one clip, it's pretty cool to see Danny Gray, right? Like, it's pretty cool to see Danny Gray getting the opportunity or with the opportunity that he has because of no Brandon Aiyuk and no Ricky Pearsall. He's taking advantage of the opportunity that he has. That is great to see. So I'm going to go and pull that up and we can take a look at it in full screen. Bear with me one moment as I get this on the screen. And it's cool because Danny Gray has the athletic traits. He has the speed that if you're a 49ers fan, you want to see. Oops, have it on the wrong screen. I have way too many screens open because I've been watching way too much film. Last night broke down. So now it's just one clip, nothing crazy, right? Nothing crazy, but it's cool to see Danny Gray getting the opportunity and making something out of it. Any chance we see Jacob Cowie, Danny Gray, and BA on the field at the same time, I would love to see that tandem, especially a 3x1 set with those three guys on the field. And what I mean by 3x1, what a 3x1 concept is or formation is you have three receivers lined up. It could be your two receivers and your tight end. That's three. And then on the other side, one. I would like to see a 3x1 of actually being out wide. Brandon Aiyuk, Danny Gray. So 1, 2, and 3 with Jacob Cowie being the interior slot. And then on the opposite side, it being like a Deebo or George Kittle. And letting their speed dictate where you want to go with the ball. I think that would be great for Brock Purdy and his decision making and stuff like that. So that is something that would be pretty cool to see. I just don't know if Jacob Cowie and Danny Gray make the roster together. I think it's either one of those guys. And if it's Jacob Cowie, you'll probably see Aiyuk, Pearsall, Cowie in that 3x1 set that I'm mentioning. If they do decide to do that. They don't necessarily call a lot of deep crossers. Now, they usually have it in most of their formations or most of their plays, but they don't normally typically call it as that being the number one read. But you will see them having a lot of crossing routes, whether that's with Deebo. Deebo's used a lot in that kind of aspect. George Kittle is as well. Shout out to Jesus. So in that, a lot of crossing routes, that's where you want to see putting the ball in a guy like Danny Gray's hands in the open field where you got to trace him down. I think that's probably the best way to put the ball in a receiver like that's hands, allowing his speed to dictate and put the ball in his hands. I also wanted to talk about Aqib Talib. Aqib Talib made a comment regarding on day one of camp. He goes on with Kay Adams, and I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to show you guys the video so you guys can hear exactly what he's saying. Hopefully you could hear the audio. Let me know if you can hear the audio. If not, I'll go ahead and say what he says. But once I have this up, you'll hear the audio. So hopefully you guys can hear. If you have not seen this video, this clip, I think this is kind of crazy for him to say. So this is we're gonna have Kay Adams show. Shout out to her. Aqib Talib joined the show, and this is what he had to say.
Aiyuk is emerging. I think he's probably my top 3 receivers right now. If you get him with a real quarterback, he can go crazy.
Brandon Aiyuk is your top 3 receiver?
Man, he's just his. I don't really go off the stats. I go off the player. and his body control, his routes, his hands, his speed, he can easily be a top receiver in the league. If you put him on a team and you make him the focal guy, oh, he'll go crazy.
Okay,
He'll go. Aiyuk is emerging. I think he's probably.
So I'm not sure if you were able to hear the audio there. Jesus, can you comment down and see? Let me know if you were able to hear the audio of Aqib Talib. But essentially, Aqib Talib goes on and says that with Aiyuk being his number 3 overall receiver, that's how he sees it. Now he says, I'm not going off of stats. I'm going off of what I see off of the film, the player. And then he goes on and says, if you get him a real quarterback, he can go crazy. I disagree with the real quarterback comment that he has, but I do agree with a comment that he mentioned while he's saying this. He says if you make Aiyuk the focal point, he'll go crazy. I do agree if you make Brandon Aiyuk the focal point and giving him more targets, he'll go crazy. Shout out to you, Jesus. I appreciate that. You guys were able to hear. I'll get to this comment right now regarding Mason and Mitchell more and maybe the number 4. But when you're looking at the way he said that, I think Brock Purdy deserves more respect than that. And I've been a Brock, I guess, a critic or whatever you want to call it, but that's just disrespectful because Brock is a real quarterback. He showed it last year. Teams couldn't stop Brock Purdy, obviously, in certain situations. Now, Brock isn't the greatest. He's not a top, in my opinion, not a top 7, not a top 8 quarterback yet, but he's on his way to being there. And when you show you were a top 12 quarterback last season, in my opinion, I had him 12, 13 range. That's a real quarterback. So I was like, that's a little disrespectful by Aqib Talib there. But I do agree if you make Brandon Aiyuk the focal point of the offense, his stats would go crazy. And this is a good comment because we did see Isaac Guerendo. We saw Isaac Guerendo go down with a hamstring pull. Christian McCaffrey didn't practice because they have a game plan for him throughout training camp. I do want to see more of Jordan Mason. But as I was saying before on one of the shows, you can't play Jordan Mason if you don't feel comfortable with his pass protecting. Because now what happened was, I know he's still efficient when he's on the field and the team defense knows he's running the damn ball. He averaged like 5 yards, 6 yards of carry. But now it puts Brock in a situation, right? Like, let's say Brock knows that you're in a kill situation. They stack the box and Mason's in. And you're not in a great situation offensively, right? Like, so I think Jordan Mason, if his pass protection gets better and he's going the right way and he's actually picking up pass protection, then you could play him. Elijah Mitchell, he'll definitely be the number 2. I think playing 2-3. I think he'll be getting some more reps this year than he got last year due to injury and stuff like that. So I think that'll be the case. I think Mitchell just needs to stay healthy. But the more you allow Jordan Mason and Mitchell to get the ball or get reps, that allows you to have Christian McCaffrey healthy at the end of the year. I don't care if Christian McCaffrey breaks the rushing record or has the most touchdowns or breaks the touchdown record for most consecutive touchdowns in a season or games in a row. That, to me, I don't care about. I want him to be healthy for the playoffs. I want him to be healthy for late in the season when you have to win the division and stuff like that. That's what I care about. And if you weren't here, talked a little bit about no Trent Williams at training camp. Trent Williams did not show up. The 49ers are obviously trying to get that situated. It's contract related. He does not have any more guaranteed money on his contract. Trent Williams is not at training camp. Again, I repeat, he should be there hopefully by the end of the week. And something else that I noticed about Brock Purdy during his great question, Roger. I think Trent gets done first. He's more important to the 49ers. If you're a 49ers fan, you know what the offensive line looks like. I think Trent would get done first. It makes more sense to get Trent done first. But I also think with Trent, if it's an extension or a restructure, you save so much money in the future that it makes sense to get Brandon Aiyuk done now first and then do it. So it depends on how the team sees. Like, I think they both get done at the end of the day by the end of the week. I would say by Sunday they're both done, but I could be completely wrong and they don't get done for another 2-3 weeks. They have till September when games actually start. But one thing I did also hear, or I noticed, I took a note on that I wanted to mention was the tight end room. Saubert had a nice rep, had a nice 25-yard catch from Brock Purdy. But then Brock Purdy when he was discussing the tight end room, there's one player he left out. I don't know if it was by accident, by design, but not a great look when it comes to Cameron Latu being left out when Brock Purdy mentioned George Kittle, Braden Willis, Logan Thomas, and Saubert. And it also correlates to Shanahan not mentioning Latu during OTAs. So to me, that's a concern. The Niners might have missed on another third-round pick. Holy shit. The Niners picking in the third round. Absolutely terrible, right? Let's look at their track record in the third round. Like, it's just bad. So Cameron Latu being left out, I don't know. I think it might be by accident, but honestly, it could be by design because Cameron Latu isn't doing much in camp or he's not getting reps with the group. So I don't know how that's going to operate or what it looks like. Jesus says, is Aiyuk disgruntled in camp? Like he doesn't want to be there? Or is he like normal or nothing happened? So he's actually there, but he's not practicing. Jesus, he's not practicing. He was there walking around with a big water bottle from the videos I seen, and a big white tee and some shorts. Got in the camera of Fox. He got in the camera and was going like this or something like that, like maybe like run it back or something. I don't know what he was signaling. But he was over there dapping up some players, talking, throwing. George Kittle threw him a pass, and then he threw right back, and then he walked off the field. But before he walked off the field, he went over to John Lynch, dapped up John Lynch. John Lynch and him start walking back together. John Lynch stops. Aiyuk finishes walking back to the locker room. Eventually, John Lynch walked towards the locker room. My guess is to talk to him. I don't know. I wouldn't say disgruntled because he's over there chopping it up with his teammates, walking around on the sidelines. So the disgruntled player wouldn't be talking to his teammates, wouldn't be dapping up John Lynch in that situation. That's just observation from what I saw. Interesting to see. Now, I don't know if I will be going live later today. But I do want to talk a little bit about some other aspects of training camp. Watching the 49ers operate, I'm curious to see how the run defense is in training camp. I wouldn't say he's back to normal or he's disgruntled because truthfully, I don't know how he is in the locker room. I don't know. I'm not around him to say he's disgruntled, but he's over there dapping people up and he's over there. So like the observation that I see shows it looks normal, but he could also be showing that it looks normal, or he could be acting the part because he knows the media's there, right? Like this plays a factor too, right? Like, hey, the media's there, act the part, right? He knows what's on the line. So I don't know. It's just a lot going on. Like you got to look at it every avenue. Like you can't just be like, oh, you know what? He's there. Everything's normal, right? Like he's not practicing. That's not normal. A normal player or a normal situation would him be practicing. But since he doesn't have that contract extension, is not going to step on the field to practice. One thing I also want to talk about was Fred Warner, right? Talked about D Winters, a guy I've been hyping up all of offseason. D Winters. Hopefully he's the number 2 linebacker. Fred Warner mentioned obviously D Winters, but he also said that this is regarding the Super Bowl loss. He said, the last thing on our mind is just making it back there. We're trying to put together the best team possible for it. And when the moment does come, we got to be the best version of ourselves when we get there. And I thought this was a pretty cool comment because he also had the comment of sometimes having too many great players is a blessing and a curse because of the contract issues, right? It's a curse because of the contract, but it's a blessing because you have the best possible team. I felt he was a little vocal in terms of the leadership last year. I thought he took that to an extreme last year of being a true leader. I think this year the Niners need to rely on him even more as a leader. With the new defensive line group, the new defensive coordinator, and it not working with Steve Wilks, I think Fred Warner has to be the vocal point and the vocal leader for the DC and the defense. Now, the defense wasn't bad last year; it was a top 5, top 7 defense. So I thought that was pretty cool for him to say, like, you know what, our goal is just to get back there. I don't care how it is, we got to get back there. We got to be the best ourselves, and that's why he brings the intensity he does every training camp. For the 49ers this offseason, the biggest thing should be is getting Brock Purdy into a rhythm quick with the young receivers, whether that's Jacob Cowing, Danny Gray. He needs those reps with those young receivers because we don't know if Brandon Aiyuk will be on the roster. So seeing him with these receivers is great. I'm excited to continue to see Brock Purdy grow throughout training camp. I'm trying to get training camp tickets for end of next week. Kenny, I think this is so. I'm trying to get training. I talked about this right now, Kenny, but I'm trying to get training camp tickets for end of next week so I could be there 3 days in a row. If not, Jesse Naylor will be there. Coach will be there. Rohan will be there. So I'll have Rohan on the channel, obviously, often. I'm trying to get Coach and Jesse on the show. Kenny says, I only worry about Detroit beating us. Their line is nice, and they finally have a kicker. Yeah, but you also got to put in the fact that their defense got much better. They got a better secondary. Defense line got better with DJ Reader. The Green Bay Packers got better. They picked up Josh Jacobs now. I think that's a wash with Aaron Jones there. Their young receivers are going to get better, obviously. They're going into year 2. They're going to take that jump. They were already good last year. They're going to take the jump. But also looking at their secondary, they got better and Xavier McKinney. That's a big upgrade at safety over Darnell Savage and everyone they had there. So there's a lot of teams that have gotten better. The Niners didn't get better. Did they get worse? I don't think so. In the terms of better, like your offensive line was the biggest issue. Your right side, at least, right tackle, right guard. It didn't really get better. Secondary got better. Defensive line got more depth. However, I'm going to go and break down once training camp starts, once pads get put on. I think the 49ers run defense will be worse this year, if not the same, without Armstead. And last year, without Armstead, it wasn't great. But that's it for today's show. Give you guys a quick 30-minute breakdown of what I saw, what I heard, or what's happening with training camp. Thank you guys all for tuning in. If you guys did not, you guys missed it. Trent Williams was not there due to contract issues. You guys could tune in to the beginning of it. You hear how much money could be saved with his contract. Brock Purdy was there, looked great. He didn't have Brandon Aiyuk. 49ers, Malik Mustapha had an interception off Joshua Dobbs. That's it for today's show. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this with your family and friends. I'm not worried about the Bears because they don't have the coaching staff and they have a young quarterback. Usually young quarterback, it's harder for them to lead when they don't have a good coaching staff. You got to have a good coaching staff when you have a young quarterback. I don't believe in their coaching staff, but that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys all for tuning in. See you guys next time, maybe a little bit later with Rohan around 4 o'clock. And if you guys have any questions, we will go ahead and talk about those questions, concerns, anything like that. So make sure you guys tune in as well. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss when I'm going live. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Peace out.